Okay,
Yes.
fantastic. Okay, thank you. Good morning, good afternoon, colleagues. It's super glad to meet you again in this webinar. This is our ninth webinar, if I'm not mistaken. Thank you for joining again. Our topic today is inclusive communication using human-centered storytelling to lead cultural organization change. Uh, my name is Saman Mestigdon. I am joining from DCO Regional Office for Africa based in Addis Ababa. Um, Today we have Heba and Roberta and Murali as well in this call. So I will ask them to introduce themselves, starting from Heba. Heba, over to you.
Thank you, Saman. It's a pleasure to have you and a pleasure to have our colleagues joining. My name is Heba Khalif. I'm joining in from Alexandria, from Egypt. I'm working with DCO as a disability inclusion consultant in business operations. Um, and I'm very happy to be with you here today. Over to Roberta.
Thank you, Heba. Good morning, good afternoon, colleagues. Happy Eid to those celebrating it, and thank you for being here despite that. I'm Roberta Martins. I work for the CEO in New York. I'm I'm a program officer in BOSS and also in CBO, so you might have seen me before. And I'm also supporting the disability inclusion as part of the high impact common services. And happy to be here. Thank you. Over to you, Murali.
Okay, thank you, Roberta. Good morning, good afternoon, everyone. Um, yeah, my name is Murali. I'm the Regional Disability Inclusion Advisor for World Food Program Regional Bureau Bangkok, based in Bangkok. Happy to be here and thanks for this opportunity to talk to you.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Heba, Roberta, and Murali. Colleagues, as we present these slides, you are all welcome to use the mic, raise the hands, or use the chat. As soon as you have questions, please don't hesitate to raise them as we present, so we are able to clarify. So let me share my screen, and then I will pass the floor to Heba to take us through the presentation. I believe that all of you can see the slides.
Yes,
Okay,
Sana.
fantastic. Thank you so much, Roberta. Heba, I think we are in the first slides on the screen. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Saman. So today is the ninth webinar, as Saman said, and this is a very special webinar because it's different from all our previous webinar in that we are going to hold it in a talk show style or a panel style webinar. We are going to discuss the topic of inclusive communication using human-centric storytelling to lead cultural and organizational change. And we are happy to have two esteemed speakers for us today, Roberta Martins and Miroli. Start with check-in exercise and little energizer. So in a few words, if you want, if someone asked you to describe yourself in one sentence, what would you say? So please write down in the chat or raise your hands if you want to use the mic. Just in two sentences. What do you want people to remember you by and refer to you as? Any comments? Any thoughts?
So far, I don't see anything on the chat, but let me
Okay, so
see if there are any.
I'll start with myself then until people think. So if I want to describe myself in two sentences, I would say I'm a person. I'm a visually impaired person. Um, very emotional. And very passionate about anything I do. So that's in a nutshell. So how would you like people to remember you with? How would you like to describe yourself? Just in two sentences.
Murali has a comment. Murali put on the chat. Murali, would you like to take the mic?
Okay, thank you. So I would like people to remember me as a person who has the confidence and who can also make people laugh, enjoy fun, and share. Happy to inspire others with my experience. Thank you.
Thank you. Great. So each one of us has something that they would like people to remember him or her with, and this is the base for any human-centered story that we want to establish. How would we like people to see us? And this is super important for persons with disabilities, as we will see later on. So we have an example of a human-centered video, a human-centered story video. And we are going to play this video, but not now, because I would like first to give you an idea about how human-centered storytelling was emerged. So if we go to the slide, design thinking and human-centered storytelling. So first, the idea of design thinking emerged in the corporate field when businesses saw the potential and the business growth and the innovation that design thinking brought. And also, most of the innovations that happened because of the use of the design thinking came from the social sector. So governments, healthcare systems, and facilities reported better results because they used the human-centered design approach. Because in a human-centered design, we actually design service delivery options and software and places according to the person's needs. So in the next slide, why do humans tell stories in general? So humans tell stories to document a memorable event, for example, or to create and make a change. If we have a social issue that we want to change, we often create stories to support this cause. Also, if we want to express our thoughts or ideas, we often use stories. Next slide. So the storytelling, as I said, it's part of the human-centered design. And when we design any service or product, we often try to interview persons, potential users of this service, service or product. So we take stories from them, we listen to them, we observe their actions in order to design the service. So there are some phases in the human-centered design. First, we have the visualization phase, and this is concerned with creating personas, which we have to use with caution when we talk about persons with disabilities, because persons with disabilities are unique and heterogeneous and a diverse group, and we cannot use one persona to represent all persons with disabilities. So if we want to create personas for persons with disabilities, we have to create a diverse personas representing different people. Then we have to assess the personal experience of persons with disabilities on what we call journey mapping. So for example, if we want to design workplaces that are inclusive, we have to envisage and work with persons with disabilities to create a journey mapping for them as soon as they finish their degree and they want to apply for a job, since the moment of them trying to apply to the moment of not only of the recruitment, but also of how they would be able to be advanced in their job and get promoted and maintain their job. The mind mapping, we can create some design criteria based on our observations and interviews and categorize those criteria into categories to be able to map them. And also, the brainstorming phase is very important. We work with persons with disabilities to generate any alternatives to challenges and any problems we might be facing to reach for solutions. And when we start developing concepts into coherent solutions, which is the next phase, then we will start by testing those solutions, prototyping them, and then replicating these solutions into sustainable actions. So these are the design thinking steps. Next slide, please. So we have to be aware of, because we are working with human beings as our main target group, and especially persons with disabilities, we have to be aware of the feelings associated with storytellings. So for any person, including persons with disabilities, some feelings could be happiness, pride, fear, just trauma, and all these feelings we have to consider when we are telling, designing human-centered stories. So the storytelling is powerful to create social change because it touches people personally. It humanizes the ideas. It turns the targets and objectives from being numbers to being persons, real people. So the stories also tend to stick in our mind. The video that we are going to show you today, I'm sure that this story is something that you will remember and will be one of your takeaways from this session, because the stories tend to stick more in our mind. It also inspires for creating change. As Morali said, he wishes to be an inspirational person that inspires change in people. So that's what we are going to do. And of course, stories spreads a lot, whether in social media platforms or through the word of mouth, or so stories spread faster. And also it's more connected to our feelings and our heart. As I said, for me personally, I'm a very emotional person, so I do anything I do. So now we're going to stop here and we're going to play the video that we are using as an example for a human-centered story, and then we're going to move to ask our panelists the questions. So Merali, I don't know, can you play the video? It was in the previous slides, one of the previous slides. Sorry, Saman, sorry, can you play the video?
Yeah, sorry.
Sorry.
Let me.
It's okay.
Is the video that you talk about profile?
Yes,
No.
of
Yes.
Morali, I think.
Of Murali, yes. Okay.
Yes, it's one of the first slides, someone.
Okay.
Heba, you put Murali in a difficult situation because he was concerned because he was not prepared to share the video. So
No, it may take a few minutes for me to download. Yeah.
So I'm trying to find the link. The link.
It's on the presentation, Saman.
It's on the presentation, Saman. So sorry, Morali, I please excuse me. It's a holiday, so my brain isn't working as it should be.
But apparently, this control click follow link. Okay, let me see the control. The link doesn't allow me to play Heba.
Okay, I can play it from my end, if that's all right.
Is that possible? Yeah, sure.
Yeah. Okay.
I think I sent it to the chat box if you want.
Oh, okay, I have it already, and so I
okay,
can.
please.
I can.
Please play.
Yeah, it will just take me a little bit of time to work with my beautiful screen reader. So I have the video now. I will share my screen. Let me share my screen. I will include my computer sound, so you're going to hear my screen reader.
Your screen.
I hope you can see my screen. Can you see my screen?
To move to an item, press the arrow keys.
Yes.
Windows Media Player. To move to an item, press the arrow keys.
Okay, and now I will play the video and let's go.
WFP
Alt enter.
Disability Inclusion Initiatives, including sign language training for Rohingya
Heba.
refugees in Bangladesh.
Yes.
We cannot see the images right now. Maybe let me
Introduction by rename
try.
on dash various artists. Number colon.
You want to share it with me, Roberta?
If you can try it again, because we can see your Windows Media Player, but the
See
images
left
are
right
not
slider.
coming.
12.45003. To increase or decrease, use the arrow.
Okay.
Rotate metadata icon
Let's
button to
see. How can
current
I
position.
go
Read
full
only edit.
screen?
Turn shuffle on button to activate. Turn repeat on button to activate. Stop button to activate. Previous button to activate. Play button to activate. Next button to activate. Press mute button to activate. Volume left right slider. Fifth. Switch to now playing button to activate. Press source drop down button to activate. Library button to activate. Library drop down button. Music button to activate. Music drop down button to activate. All music
I
button to
cannot
activate. Play button
see.
to
How
activate.
can
Turn button to
I
activate. Play button to activate. Press
do a
space bar.
full screen?
Okay.
Based on my
Alt enter.
experience, disability inclusion is possible.
Is there any
It's a
change?
matter of leadership, collaboration,
No, let me
building our
try
own
Heba to share
capacity,
from my
and
side.
engaging with.
I think
Okay.
I got it.
You got it?
Oh, thank you.
I got it. Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
Heba, I'm gonna play it now.
Inclusive
Okay, let
communication colon
me
using
stop
human
to
dash.
share. Yes, please go ahead.
How is Hoba? Can you hear?
Yes. I cannot hear, but I can see the screen right now.
You cannot hear, right?
Yes.
So
Yeah,
You have to stop sharing and share again with the sound of your computer.
okay. Stop sharing. Share again.
And share the sound of your computer.
It's actually give me 1 minute. Sorry.
Experience.
The
Yes,
film
now we have the
opens
sound.
with footage of WFP disability inclusion initiatives, including sign language training for Rohingya refugees in Bangladesh.
Based on my experience, disability inclusion is possible. It's a matter of leadership, collaboration, building our own capacity, and engaging with the people.
Morally Padmanabhan, WFP Disability Inclusion Advisor, is shown smiling in a courtyard.
My name is Murli Padmanabhan, and I'm the Regional Disability Inclusion Advisor, currently working with the World Food Program Regional Bureau in Bangkok.
Morally sits at a desk in his hotel room working on his laptop.
My disability is visual impairment. I'm a completely blind person. I acquired this condition when I was 22.
Morally demonstrates the accessibility features on his smartphone.
If I want to know how many messages are unread, I'll go here. No new messages.
Morally walks with guidance from a hotel porter and gets into a van. He is then seen at the airport where a suited man guides him. Once inside the terminal, an airport staff guides him through check-in, immigration, and into the departure lounge.
My disability is not that difficult to manage in terms of my daily routine. But it was initially hard because there was societal pressure, family expectation, and it was initially a kind of shock and denial. Like my parents used to say, oh, what is he going to do? Other children are doing this, doing that, they have a career. However, when I saw some opportunities coming, I took it and I was positive. I went on to do my master's degree in social works. I quickly underwent a rehabilitation like learning braille, mobility orientation, and from there, I didn't turn back.
A woman guides morally through the WFP office in Kathmandu, Nepal. He meets with Robert Kaska, country director of WFP Nepal, and they have a discussion. This is followed by photos of persons with disabilities receiving food and other forms of humanitarian aid from WFP.
My job entails basically advising the regional bureau and country offices to train people, build their capacity, raise their awareness in integrating disability in WFP, where we really want to mainstream disability as a mandate, both internally and externally, trying to include or promote inclusion when we intervene in the humanitarian response program.
A car passes by the WFP office in Kathmandu. This is followed by footage of staff training on disability inclusion.
In terms of WFP's work, you have a fantastic leadership, sensitive and a very responsive team who want to really embrace inclusion as an organizational culture.
A woman guides morally through the car park of the WFP office in Kathmandu. This is followed by photos of accessibility features in WFP offices, including tactile flooring and a woman at a wheelchair accessible desk.
For instance, in Nepal, they are planning to move the office. So we ensure that the new office will have good amount of accessibility. We try to make it universal, not only for people with a disability, it should be for all. When you design something, it should be for everybody.
Morally is giving a talk to field staff.
Also, we are going to the field offices where we really want to strengthen the capacity of field staff in terms of what, why, and how we can promote disability inclusion within our context. Disability is not the impairments of individuals, it is the barriers.
Morally takes a guided tour of Nepali temples and is seen touching stone and wooden sculptures and structures.
Go with the open mind. Try to understand and get to know more about the good practices. Seek the collaboration. Engage with the people and ensure their active participation. And look at persons with a disability as a contributing factor rather than a mere beneficiary.
Morally talks to WFP staff and the room gives a round of applause as Morally smiles.
I'm proud to work with the WFP. I'm able to inspire people with my work, with my action, with my presence. That's the proud moment for me.
Thank you so much, Saman, for sharing the video, and thank you, Morali, for having the opportunity, giving us the opportunity to play. So, as we have seen now, this is an example of a video that is created by a person with a disability, based on his personal experience and his personal stories. So let's move now to the questions and ask our panelists. Now, the first question is, if we want to learn more about the person, we should ask them how would they like to describe themselves. So exactly as we asked in the beginning, and our panelists have answered this question, when you want to create a story about a person with a disability, you should treat this story as any other story with any other person, because we have to think of the person first and not the disability. So we will now get the perspective of our panelists about how they view disability inclusion in the workplace. So we will start with the ladies first. So I'll go for Roberta first. How do you perceive disability inclusion in the workplace?
Thank you, Heva. So maybe I can start by describing myself. How do I want to see, people to see me? So
Sure.
I'm a lady coming from, I would say a girl coming from the South, but I'm reaching my 50s, so I don't think I can say girl anymore. but I'm a lady coming from Brazil. And this, of course, is a way to picture myself, because when I say that I'm from Brazil, people have images about myself and my personality that might not be exactly what I am, but I'm a very communicative person and absolutely passionate for everything that I do. So that's why for me right now, working with disabilities, disability inclusion, working with high impact common services, for me, it's something that I cannot avoid thinking about anymore. So every time I'm doing anything on my workplace, my workspace, I always try to see with the different lenses that I've gained through during the past years. So for me, disability inclusion in the workspace is a must. It's not a favor. It's not a new trend. It's part of our daily life. It has to be part of our daily life. And everything that I do today, I try to look at the perspective of disability inclusion as well. Is this place accessible to everyone who wants to come here? Even if it's a person, for example, a pregnant woman, or maybe someone who broke a leg, is this place accessible to everyone? Is this content available to everyone? Maybe we need to adjust the language. Maybe we need to adjust the uh, the uh, the idiom. Maybe we need to do it in French if we want to reach more people. No, so this is today part of my daily checking, my mindset every day. Over to you, Heba.
Thank you so much, Roberta. I think this is very insightful and valuable when we look at disability as part of our daily routine, let's say, to be inclusive on all fronts, including persons with disabilities. So I'll go over to Morali. And if you can explain from a point of view of a person with disability, how do you think people were viewing disability inclusion in the past, and how did this change in the present?
Okay, thank you, Hiba. Yes, disability, as we all recognize, is a concept of evolution. We came of ages. If I could, recall my own journey when I became blind 30 years ago. Um, yeah, it was something to pity on, something to do with charity, or someone try to compensate what I'm missing in life, or it was like a very, very conservative approach. But over a period, as we all progress, we learned that no, it is not the impairment of the individual. It is the matter of barriers around us. It could be in the environment, it could be in our own system, policies, programs, institutions. On top of it, in our own perception, individuals' perception. It is not the persons without disability, even with the persons with disabilities and the families before we reach out to the community. How I look at my disabilities. Am I open enough to accept, identify myself as a person with a disability? Am I ready to share the experience so that people will understand, people can see you be the change first. I would believe in that. I cannot just claim my rights without having the responsibility to tell what is the need. When you say nothing about us without us, I should also tell what I want, what is needed, and how it can be done. So I'm equally responsible to tell and educate the community as one expect the community to be changing. Yeah, that will be my thing. And of course, I could see a lot of positive changes happening. That's why today we in the UN, in a couple of days ago, I was participating in a UN conference where the true spirit of inclusion could be witnessed in terms of participation, reasonable accommodation, accessibility. So we, as person with a disability, are equally responsible and join the process and own the process of change. That's my strong belief and the practice. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Morali. All right, so that brings us to a very important point because you talked about the level of commitment and the inclusion spirit that you witnessed during your previous participation. So I'll go over to Roberta and ask her, since she has been leading on a lot of fronts. As a leader, what do you think that the role of leadership could do in order to provide more inclusive workplaces for persons with disabilities, depending on their human-centered stories?
Sure, Heba. So thank you for the leader, because I guess the leadership is something that comes naturally. It's really the passion about what I'm doing right now, and how can we encourage more people, right? Uh, what I see when we are talking about disability inclusion in our workplace, what I see is that we can learn from the diverse environment that we have, because we all have different backgrounds, we all have different abilities. So the moment we start encouraging the participation of colleagues from diverse backgrounds, from diverse abilities, and I want to call it abilities, as I'm saying, because I've learned a lot from different colleagues, with and without disabilities. This makes us this gives us the opportunity of learning more from our environment. And one of my concerns today is really to listen to my colleagues with disabilities, because you are the best person to tell me, Heber, what I need to provide you with to best perform your functions to the best of your capacities. So it's not on me to say, okay, you need this, but it's on you to tell me and share with me what are your needs, so how can I help you, instead of me guiding you on what you need to do. And I think this is very important, because it's again, it's a change of mentality, of culture, because I would say that we are normally afraid of dealing with colleagues of with disabilities, because we don't know what to do, and sometimes we really don't know what to do. But the best person to answer me what to do is the person with whom I'm interacting, right? So my first recommendation, or inspiration would be, yes, please work together with them to understand what they need, because this is the best way of really advancing and including more and more colleagues on the workspace. And if I may also add, this is also important because of the stigma, because sometimes people wouldn't tell you that they have a disability at the workplace, because they may feel that it's can hinder their participation, and it's a reality even inside the UN. I used to work with a colleague that only after more than 1 year, I realized that this person had a disability, because he never disclosed it. Because he said, okay, I didn't want to disclose it because I thought it could change the way people would treat me at the workspace. Because sometimes it can be visible, like as you're saying, both of you, that you are visually impaired, so it's more visible for others. But sometimes it's not visible, and we need to work on this on the side of the stigma as well, to make sure that our environment at the workplace is really inclusive. Over to you.
Thank you so much, Roberta. So you touched upon a very important number of points. So in line with what you have discussed, working in collaboration with persons with disabilities is important, not only because they will guide you on what to do, but also they will challenge your stereotypes and enrooted mental models that you have. Okay, so every one of us have a mental model of some sort about the other person. Like, let's say now, when I mentioned the word Egypt, let's say, this creates a little bit of a mental model for each and every one of you about Egypt, correct? So, because that's what we do, we tend to categorize everything into boxes in our brain. So, how can we challenge the mental models and the stereotypes that exist about persons with disabilities using human-centered stories? Morali, if you can elaborate on that.
Thank you. Yeah, of course, we sometimes we jump to conclusions because of our personal experience in the past, and we try to, generalize things. But yeah, that is something we need to look at. Yeah, even in my case, people think, okay, if you look at me, People may not, recognize that I have a sort of impairment, and sometimes my mannerism also doesn't match with the typical blind person. Looking at people, talking to the face, for example, turning to the side where people are sitting. So these are all some of the misconception people have. Oh, how come this person can't see, but he's able to identify somebody is coming, or so those kind of misconceptions we need to tell. See, look, I have to clarify very often. I doesn't mean that no, I can follow, I can have the mannerism because I acquired this disability. Before that, I was able to see things. I was able to, do things with my eyes. But so I'm just continuing. I can have the imagination now. Now I'm not able to see, but I can quickly imagine and visualize things. So that's why sometimes people, get confused with my, physical appearance and my identity as a person with a disability. I'm responsible to tell that this is what if I hesitate, then I'll be sometime in trouble when I need some help. People may not realize that I need help. So I need to sometimes I don't need to put a sticker on my face that I'm blind, but at the same time, whenever there is a need, I need to ask people. Otherwise, I'll be at the losing end. Nothing wrong in identifying yourself as a person with the disabilities, not to seek sympathy, but to but to make people aware that this person might need. Of course, you have your qualification. You are not here with your disability. You are not given the job out of sympathy or charity. That has nothing to do with your employment. So people sometimes they get struck with that kind of perception. It's a kind of position reserved because we want to support or help people with a disability. No way. As a professional, you are on an equal footing and you have the capacity. Of course, we need some reasonable accommodation. That's the area we need to ask for support. Rather, it is not a sort of concession given to you. I should be on par with anybody else in terms of performance or qualification or expertise. So that's how I should tell people, and the role models will give some sort of spark and the inspiration to the general public to change their mindset. Rather than rather than generalizing things, they will be in a position to understand, okay, it's a matter of diversity, and disability is not a homogeneous character. It has its own differences. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Amrali. All right. So, if we are talking about to create an inclusive workspaces, I wanted to go back to Roberta now. How do you think we can include persons with disabilities not only in issues relating to disability inclusion, but to other issues concerning the main work of the organization, depending on their own stories?
Yeah, I think you mentioned something very important, depending on their own stories. So what we need to do, and as Morelli was saying, is not a matter of charity, but a matter of understanding the abilities and the qualification of the person. Because, this goes back to my first interaction with Heba. Heba has something that for me is very special. I'm coming from UNESCO, and she used to work for the Alexandria Bibliothèque. The Library of Alexandria, which is one of the milestones of UNESCO, the reconstruction of the library. So she comes in with lots of knowledge, lots of experience. That this is what we need to use in our favor inside the organization, to have the best qualities, the best knowledge that she has to help us advance with our work. And if it means that we also need to give you about the space and the necessary tools to perform your work at the best of your capacity. And something that I really would like to see in the future of the UN is that we don't need to make lots of effort to give this reasonable accommodation that colleagues may need. Because you remember how long it took us to get you the license for the screen reader. I would like this to be part of the routine, as sometimes some people need a pen, they may need a screen reader, and it has to be as simple as to get a pen, to get a screen reader available for the colleagues who need it, right? So for me, the most important part here is really to have the possibility of getting the best of the qualities, of the capacities that every single colleague has. Over to you.
Thank you. Thank you, Roberta. And this does not only apply for persons with disabilities, as you say, it applies for everyone to try to get the best, and to press on the strong points on each and every one of us is going to make us have a more productive, better performance in our workplace. So you touched upon a very important point, which is assistive technologies and tools. So I'll go over to Morali again and ask you, how do you think assistive technology and artificial intelligence could help include persons with disabilities in the workplace?
Very, very, very timely question. Thank you very much. I can quickly go back. What was available 30 years back, 50 years back for a person with a disability, especially people who have sight difficulty. And today, it's amazing. It has opened up several opportunities. For instance, what was not possible for me to do independently in terms of reading or writing or communicating with with all these latest gadgets, today it is possible because of the technology, the adaptation, and even the universally designed, mobile phones. Definitely, that has also opened up many job opportunity. What we used to call, there are certain jobs which are identified. The so-called identified jobs are the only jobs available for people with disabilities. For instance, a blind can become a teacher, can become, do something, within the sheltered employment. Today, what I'm doing is something, an advantage arising out of the technology, and how I can operate my laptop, how can I communicate or write my reports or reaching out and conducting webinars. Almost thanks to COVID, that has accentuated the need for digital technology, where most of us are meeting each other on the screen. It's very rare to meet in person. So it's, of course, it's a blessing in disguise that it has its own advantages. Today it has expanded, and I can operate any platform which is coming with an accessibility feature to connect with people. Okay, it's Teams or Zoom or whatever. We are able to, we are not left out. We are, even if we are not able to travel to a place, we are included in meetings, whether it's in New York or in Melbourne. We are there, we are able to operate, we are able to express, we are able to participate meaningfully. That is much more important, without asking someone, depending completely on others to raise our voice. So I would say definitely it's a boom, and we can make use of it. And of course, the organizations are also sensitive to ensure that we have the accessible gadgets. Even procurement is taking a lot of effort to ensure goods and services are accessible, thanks to the UN disability inclusion strategy, which is religiously followed in many of the UN agencies for their employees with the disabilities. Definitely, it's a good shot in the arm, I would say. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Morali. And so now we have some kind of a roadmap. If we want to include persons with disabilities on our workplace, depending on listening from them, getting their personal stories and experiences, we know now that we have to make sure our places are inclusive physically and digitally, that we have the reasonable accommodations in place, that we have the necessary mindset in order to accommodate them and their needs. So I'll go to another little bit controversial topic that we have, which is persons with intellectual disabilities. Among people with disabilities, there are a number of underrepresented groups, like women and persons with intellectual disabilities. I'll ask Roberta here. Do you think that the UN is like we are ready as not as the UN, not as the agency, but as persons. Do you think we have the necessary level of readiness and commitment to include persons with disabilities in our workspaces?
Just a clarification here. You're talking about intellectual disabilities or in general?
Intellectual disabilities.
Okay. So yes, I think that we still have a road to go with intellectual disabilities at the workplace. I see that more and more we are advancing on disability inclusion at the UN. We have the UN strategy, disability inclusion strategy. We have specialists working with us, like yourself, like Murali. But I think that we still have a way to go when it comes to disability, to intellectual disabilities. And it's not impossible to include those colleagues in our workplace. And I have a personal story, in fact, because I've been always an enthusiast of the disability inclusion. And on my previous function, one of my colleagues had a child, a boy with intellectual disability. And I still remember the day he got his first job. And it was a job that was tailor-made to his needs. So he's a guy with, he's a young autist man. And he got a job in a library in restoration of old books. So he was able, with the library was able to have the best of his abilities because he was able to work in a quiet space without much of social interaction. And he was able to use his incredible ability to care about details. So for him, it was his first opportunity of working independently. And I still remember how happy he was when he came to the office to say to his dad that he got his first salary. And for him, it was an opportunity to change his life because he's now experimenting the opportunity of living by himself in an accessible housing system in Brazil. And he's more confident today to perform his duties of his daily life. What I see is that we have space to be more inclusive to colleagues with intellectual disabilities and really make use of their best abilities, their best capacities, their knowledge to help us in our daily work as well, to contribute to the work, not to help us, but to contribute to the work of the UN. So over to you.
Thank you so much, Roberta, and thank you for sharing this story. And this story really capitalizes on a very important point, which is to make the job tailored to the person's needs. One of the challenges that we could hinder or impede persons with intellectual disabilities joining the workplace is our own mindset, that we are thinking that persons with intellectual disabilities might not be able to do the tasks of the job that we require them to do. But if we are really doing a job match exercise where we try to match the individual with a special set of skills to the suitable job tasks and competencies, we can actually employ persons with disabilities in our workspaces. But what's stopping us is our limiting beliefs that it's hard for persons with disabilities to work. All right, so now I want to move to another point and ask Morali, how can we increase the exposure to disability inclusive topics within the United Nations using the human-centered stories? Morali, are you here?
Oh,
I'm not
hello.
sure.
Sorry, I lost
Yes.
you. Sorry.
Would you like me to repeat the question?
Yeah, please. I lost you a bit. Yeah, sorry.
Okay. So, what do you think? How can we increase exposure to disability inclusion within our workspaces using our human-centered storytelling design?
Okay, thank you. Thank you for that. Yes, we have a good start. Of course, UN goes it's being a big, largest missionary across the world. You have lots of diversities, and people are conscious of bringing a very diverse workforce diversity and inclusion is a big topic we are talking about. It's mainly to repeat the message, number one. Number two, consistent messaging from the leadership. See, today we are able to progress this much in the last couple of years. It's because the messaging from the leadership, organizing, sort of short meetings and sensitization events, inviting people with the disabilities, include them in our, training programs like HR conducts lots of training. So have a topic on disability inclusion and induction can take on the topic of inclusion as an integral part or a mandatory course, whatever you call it, how, the entry points. We need to identify those entry points, remind people of inclusive communication and having some visual materials developed and displayed in the visible areas, not, kept in the cupboards or shelves. So it should be a consistent one. It's not just, raising awareness on the 3rd of December on the International Day of Persons with a Disability. It's an ongoing, of course, the December is to take stock of the events, what we have achieved, celebrating the achievements. That needs to be there to, sustain the momentum. But it's a 24/7, 365 days of year kind of conversation and how things can be, better done, improved, and appreciating things, even a small initiative and adequate resourcing and exposing good role models of some video clippings or sound bites, taking every opportunity and talking to every individual unit and looking at their actions, giving them a kind of constructive feedback to be more inclusive. So these are some of the things on a regular basis will ensure that this is just not spoken only on a particular day of speciality. Thank you.
Heba?
Thank you. So, yes, Roberta, please go
Can I
ahead.
make a point on what Murali just said? Because I think he touched something that for me is very important on the feedback. Because sometimes I feel that some colleagues, they are afraid of giving feedback to colleagues with disabilities. But this is really important because we should not be afraid of giving feedback to anyone. There is always a way, a positive way of giving feedback. And this is the only way that we can improve our own work is by feedback from other colleagues as well, right? And I think that sometimes people are afraid of giving feedback to colleagues with disabilities because they say, oh, okay, but he's doing his best to achieve what we are asking him to do. But if I don't give you feedback, how can you improve what you're doing today?
Exactly.
So don't be afraid of giving feedback.
Yeah. Disability is not a privilege.
Yes, yes, exactly. And I used to work in a number of organizations, and one of the previous jobs that I used to work with, I didn't receive any feedback from my supervisors. And that puts me in confusion. It caused a lot of confusion. Am I doing good? Am I doing well? Am I doing bad? What do I need to improve? And I think it's very intimidating for persons with disabilities to feel that they are not doing enough, and they are not doing the required part of the job, and at the same time they are not told what to do in order to improve. So they are at a vulnerable situation here because they can sense that people are not treating them as equals because they are not performing as they should, but at the same time they are not provided with the constructive feedback that would enable them to improve. So that is really a very important point, and that will lead me to the next question. So Roberta, if you want to create a human-centered story about persons with disabilities, what is the first questions that is going to come to your mind to ask the person, or what are the steps that you're going to take as a personally in order to create this human-centered story?
You put me in a very difficult situation because I'm not a specialist in storytelling, Reba, but from my experience and from what I learned from you as well, my first question would be how this person would like herself or himself to be pictured as. Because I may focus in one aspect, like I was talking about your experience at the Alexandria library, because it's something that talks to me. but maybe this is not the best experience that you want to share. So my first, if I'm looking at the storytelling aspect of disability inclusion in our workplace, my first question would be, how would you like to be pictured in this story? And what are the challenges that you face that you want to share, and how you overcome the challenges? And what are the experience, what are the lessons learned that you can share with other colleagues as well? But you put me in a very difficult situation, Heba, because I'm not an specialist in storytelling. Huh?
I'm so sorry. I don't mean to do that, but really, I wanted to. I wanted to have your experience as a person without a disability, and support and an ally, to see how you are looking at this thing. And you actually provided a very good and very comprehensive answer. So that's exactly it. When we want to create a story, a human-centered story, we should ask the person how would they like to be portrayed and how do they identify themselves. For example, I know that in formal communications, we have to use people first language. Okay, and this is what the UNDIS strategy advises to do, and all the guidelines advise us to do. But if I am to create a personal blog on a personal website, on a personal social media page, I would go for the identity first language. I'm a person with visual impairment. I mean, my visual impairment actually is one of the shapers that shaped my identity. Not everyone thinks the same way. People might think differently. And this is a very important point to bear in mind, is to account for the differences between persons with I used to work in another organization as a person with a disability as a consultant. And then I left this job. One of my other colleagues, who also has a visual impairment, have resumed my work in this organization. So she has a totally different set of needs and requirements and support, different from me. So all colleagues in the organizations were very surprised, because this colleague has a different way of doing things, different technologies that she's using, different devices. And they would say, oh, we thought that people with visual impairment use this and this and this. But it's not good to group all persons who have the same impairments in one basket, because this wouldn't work, because it's not a one size fits all job. So when you're creating your human-centered stories, you have to think of asking the right questions, as Roberta said, in order to gain more information. So, Morally, I go back to you and ask you, what questions that people should avoid when they are creating the human-centered stories about persons with disabilities?
Okay. Thank you. There is no such, questions to be asked, questions to be added or avoided. For me, as long as you are maintaining the dignity and the respect of the person, anything can be asked in such a way so that the person is not offended or we are asking something insensitive. Of course, it depends upon the audience, depends upon the purpose, and the privacy and what to be disclosed, what to be shared in public. Those things matter. For me, if it is going to be something to do with my professional life, for example, if I disclose my disability in an interview for the HR to consider, it is mainly for the reasonable accommodation, nothing else, not to add extra marks for my performance, right? And again, if I have to share my story to inspire someone or to motivate someone, instead, no, I don't have to compare me and the person. I can tell these are the things I encountered, but things have changed. So it depends upon who you talk to, how you're talking to, and what level of knowledge, and what is the current context in which you try to talk to the person. So these all as you said, there is no one fit for every solution. As you said, some might need a braille book, some might need a digital book, so it all depends. Similarly, you need to understand what is the purpose of this very conversation. If you are known and if you are in a personal level, if you have a kind of long-term relationship, then that that's a different issue. Like you will know the person, you know the sensitivity, but when you are known to someone for very few hours of time, and it's a regular conversation, you don't need to be very reserved. You don't need to reserve things, in a dilemma whether to ask this question or not. But as long as we maintain that, line of dignity and respect, I think as a human being, I shouldn't be, treated differently. I should be treated like anybody else. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Yes, it's absolutely true that people with disabilities would like to be treated as if they are, as any other human beings. But what about other factors that are interrelated to the person's disability? Like, for example, the culture, the society, the gender factors, all these intersecting factors. How do you think we can also address them when we are trying to create a human-centered story about a person with a disability? How can we uh, approach these intersecting factors? Roberta, would you like to?
Okay, I can try this. This is a difficult one because, as you were saying, there are other factors that interact. We are not a one character person. We don't have only one aspect in our lives. And from my own experience, for example, at the very beginning of my career, I started very young at the UN as a woman, as which is a visual, I would say, character. And of course, I also had my challenges when for being young, for being a woman, for being Brazilian, and many stereotypes. I guess maybe Heben, and I'm trying to figure out here the best answer to your question. But maybe what we need to do is really to try to avoid the stereotypes, because this is something that would hinder our ability to see the qualities of the person that we are working with. So when we are telling about when we are telling the story about someone, um, getting rid of our stereotypes about the disability, the gender, the age. This is something that we can try to avoid in order to really understand the best qualities, the best capacities of this colleague. I don't know if I got exactly what you asking.
Yes, because you discussed the importance of getting all the facts about the person and include them in our mental image and in our stories. Because, for example, I'm a person with visual impairment, but I'm also a mother. I'm also a sister. I'm an activist. I'm a singer. I'm a piano player. I'm a book reader. I love cooking. So these are things that I would like people to know about me, in addition to me being a person with visual impairment. So when you are trying to create yeah, and also that I'm a woman and I'm living in Egypt and I'm a Muslim, so I have a lot of intersecting factors that governs the way I think and the way people might perceive me. So when you are when any person is trying to design a human-centric story about myself, I would love to mention all these intersecting factors as part of my story, because this is all identity shapers. So I'm going to move now to Morali and ask you about your dreams and aspirations about how persons with disabilities would be portrayed in the UN system, and about the advancement of persons with disabilities in general in the UN.
Okay, thank you very much. It's like a similar kind of journey the gender colleagues undertaken, and it's mainly the removal of barriers. So the UN is a place where there is a universally designed environment in terms of policies or programs or environment, the physical structure, and it's I look for a transformative outlook of the UN where diversity and inclusion is part of the culture of the body. So that is the fundamental thing I aspire. And again, there is no need for a targeted initiative. Like I don't want to see the inclusion strategy as such. It should be very well inbuilt in every piece of every brick of the organization, I would say. So everyone is responsive, everyone is proactive in their work, looking at inclusion in a broader way and in their daily practice. So that makes, in fact, today, if you take persons with a disability, you can count them. See, I don't want, how many of us are there in the UN to identify and bring them all in a few, brackets? So I want them to be omnipresent, and we should be knowing more of the mainstream colleagues, rather than limiting ourselves to our own, the homogeneous group called the disability sector. So it should be expanded, it should be opened up. I would like to see more champions of disability inclusion from those, the so-called the people without disability, rather than it's, I don't want to, I want to stop this stereotyping. When I want to have promote disability inclusion, it is not that I employ someone with a disability to go around for that. It should be, we should see more champions who have no personal experience of disability, but to inspire others. So that I want to see that happening in the UN system. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Morali. All right, Roberta. So, what do you think that now we talk about persons championing disability inclusion within the system, but what from the perspective of a champion and an ally, what can you tell persons with disabilities? What do they need to do in order to disability inclusion topics in the UN system?
Yeah, so good. Coming from this perspective of not having a disability, at home as well, I'm purely an ally here. And what I may share with you, Hab, and the colleagues, is that being a champion of disability inclusion in the workspace, as Morelli said, is it's like in the past it was to be a gender equality champion in the workspace. You don't need to be a person with disability to encourage the participation of colleagues with disability. And colleagues with disability, they don't have to be only working with disability inclusion inside the system. We really need what I would say to colleagues with disability to encourage them to participate is really to show up and share their abilities, their knowledge, because I'm sure that we can have colleagues with disability in all areas of our work. As we said before, maybe we need to tailor-make the job to the person, but there is no specific niche where colleagues with disabilities have to work with. They can work in all the areas that we work, and there is no reason for us not to recognize that. And for colleagues with disability, what I would encourage us to do is really to showcase their qualities, their knowledge, their abilities, to really encourage us, other colleagues without disabilities, to see where we can better use the capacities of everyone in the system. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Roberta. Yes, you touched upon a very important point, that people with disabilities have to be self-assertive and explain and showcase their qualities. But let me give you a little bit of a shocking experience here, that sometimes persons with disabilities do not know that they possess these qualities, because they sometimes experience a lot of traumatic experiences during their working life, especially if they are in societies where disability inclusion is not at its prime, at its best. So they have a lot of exclusionary, isolating behaviors and stigma from the society, that they began to doubt their own qualities and their own you know, competencies. So they don't know that they have these qualities. So they might need a little bit of a push from the people who are closely working with them to say, yes, you have this quality, you can work on this, and you can go ahead and do that. Persons with disabilities sometimes develop what we call masking. They can mask their true feelings. They can appear as if everything is working fine, but deep down, they are not feeling so confident. What do you think, Morali, of these hidden attitudes? How can we deal with them, interact with them?
Well, thank you very much. Yeah, it's again, it's not something unique to people with the disabilities. This could be, found in others as well. But this might be very prominent or visible when it comes to people with the disability and our own attitude and approach towards people with the disabilities. Of course, the confidence level, the bitter experience in the past, the kind of stigmatization, humiliation one could have experienced in the family or in the community in the past could be the reason they carry the baggage because of that and the denial of opportunities. There are so many bitter experiences they pile up and they are reflected manifested in the character or the behavior. So it needs a bit of reinforcement, positive reinforcement, and give them the opportunity because sometimes we are not quite optimistic. Sometimes we are truly pessimistic because of the past experiences. So in order to take those kind of feelings from them, of course it's not an easy job. uh, the first and foremost thing is to ensure the opportunity. See, in my case, personally speaking, I was so dejected. A man completed the degree in 24, 23 years, energetic person who had a lot of aspiration, becoming blind all of a sudden. But it was truly traumatizing. But when I saw the opportunity, as I indicate as I mentioned in the video, when there is an opportunity, that was my trigger. I left behind all the negative feelings, ill feeling, those people who humiliated. I forgot today I am the kind of role model for them. So it's the matter of opportunity and the personal effort. Of course, I also need to put in my effort. It's not that I can be spoon fed all the time. Of course, I need opportunities. I need to be given the feedback. I need to be guided, and I need to be given that reassuring environment, opportunity to learn, because sometimes you miss the opportunity to learn. The age goes off. We spend some years without doing much productive work, so we need to compensate in order to give that, concept that. So we need to be given those kind of opportunity to learn while we are into a job, even a sort of trainings or mentorship. Those things will definitely boost the morale of a person who has been struggling to come out of all these traumatic experiences, and that will give them a kind of confident building measure. Definitely, it's a matter of working with them, identifying the talents, repeatedly reminding of their potential, and on top, by making the opportunities in their way, and also make them to learn in a hard way as well. It's not that only you are facing this. There are people who have other challenges, may not be in the physical or mental condition, but in other ways. So it is not that something unique to you or something happening only to you. So those kind of examples we need to give. The positive reinforcement needed to be given, and yeah, that's the thing. Thank you.
Thank you. And this should be also reflected in the stories we're publishing and in the pieces, in the communication pieces we're trying to and the messages we're trying to send through our communication platform about persons with disabilities. It is very important to celebrate the achievements, but at the same time, it is very important to click on or alert and highlight the challenges as well. So I would like to open the floor to the attendees if they would like to ask the panelists any questions.
Can you repeat the question? Is it for me, Hiba?
No, I'd like to open the questions for the meeting attendees. If they have any questions for you or Roberta, please feel free to ask. You can raise your virtual hand or you can type in the chat. Any questions for Roberta or Morali?
I don't think so far not, but let's wait for a couple of minutes, I think. Colleagues, please use the mic. If you cannot use the mic, please let me know so then I can unmute you. So there is a question on the chat from Julianne. What was the feedback about the video and what was the impact at the organizational level of the video and storytelling? So I believe this is for Murali.
Yes.
Okay, thank you very much. Yeah, thanks. Yes, we have been receiving good feedback. In fact, see, when we talk to them about disability inclusion through trainings, they take 20-25% of it. But when they see someone is on the move, when something is captured, I think it takes them to the next level of believing and practicing. And this has made lot of reasonable progress in some of our country offices, like looking for people, the talent acquisition with the so the people with the disability are recruited. They are looking for more and more information about the beneficiary level data on disability, and looking at our own premises. So this has made changes among people, and it has received good feedback. Even some of our donors are excited about this. They started sharing this in the social media, and they want to make use of this to inspire many organizations to become more and more inclusive. That shows, that's an indicator that this video is doing something to change the mind. I can interpret that way.
Thank you so much, Morally. Yes, and this is the desired impact that we are really looking forward to. If we create more and more of these human-centered stories and share it through our communication platforms, this is due to do a change and do an impact, make an impact on the way environments, facilities, places, digital platforms are designed, and the way our minds, our mindset can shift. So. I'd like to ask Roberta, since you started your journey learning and working with people with disabilities, what did this change in your mindset about the overall perception of the community, and of the people around you?
Yeah, I guess my main takeaway, Heba, is really to listen to colleagues with disability before taking any action. Because sometimes we think we might be helping them, but on the best of our good intentions, we are hindering them from learning. So from a very small example, the use of the QR codes during the sessions. Every time I create for you the QR code, I'm taking from you the opportunity of learning to do it by yourself. So really, I guess my main takeaway of this experience is to try to understand the needs of the others, and how can I be a tool to increase my knowledge and the knowledge of this colleague. I guess, and we discussed this before, I learn every time that I work with you, and I'm sure that you also learn every time you work with me. So learn from the best qualities of the others, and no matter if it's a person with disability or not.
Thank you so much, Roberta. Yes, it's absolutely true. We have to learn from each other, and I'm certainly learning from you and from each and everyone I'm working with during my work. So we have to listen to the person we're communicating with. We don't have to perceive what the needs of our support that the person needs. We have to ask them. So always ask, always consult with persons with disabilities, always make them tell their own stories. A lot of the time, stories that are published by about persons with disabilities are created by people without disabilities. So they look at disability from a different lens. So when we make the or when we make the persons with a disability sit in the driver's seat and take the lead and tell their own stories, everything is different. So I want to share the last slide with you. Saman, if we could just share the slide of the best practices that we can do in order
Sure.
to um, design these stories.
You want me
Um,
to go to the last slide?
the Let me get you the correct title of the slide. The best practices when designing human-centered story.
I have a practice to foster human-centric disability inclusion
Yes,
stories.
yes,
Okay.
that's it. Yeah.
Okay. I
Of
put on
course,
the screen now.
yeah, just a second. I'm just trying to reach to it with a screen reader. All right. So, some practices that could force disability inclusive human-centered stories, as I said, is to consult with persons with disabilities, ask them how would they like to be portrayed, how they would like to identify themselves. Um, and include disability inclusive stories in our mainstream everyday communications as much as we can. Increase the exposure. We have to take the lessons learned from the gender equity front, because the way that the gender issues or the gender inclusion happened is by increased exposure, because gender issues touches every one of us are touched by them. So we are exposed to gender inequalities and challenges every day in our life. We would like to make disability inclusion the same way. So by talking more about disabilities, publishing more stories about persons with disabilities, including disability inclusion in the um, um, topics that we discuss, and including persons with disabilities in the mainstream discussions of our organizations, that will increase the exposure. Maybe we can dedicate 5 minutes in our team meeting to talk about the achievements of persons with disabilities, and to highlight those achievements. Um, Maybe we can approach persons with disabilities when when we are designing our communicational pieces, like the newsletter or the social media posts, if they have got anything to add, not only in the International Disability Day, but in any other day of the year. In printed communications like calendars and yearly book and any printables, we can include some tips on disability sensitization, how to interact with a person with a disability, or what kind of assistive technology that does a person with visual impairment might use. Um, so includes any stories or quotes from persons with disabilities that they would like to share with the rest of the staff. Um, anyway, include images for persons with disabilities in mainstream media and mainstream posts, not only in disability inclusion related products. So if we are delivering any piece about the general work of our organization, like uh, if we are providing any support in any front, we should include persons with disabilities in our mainstream communications too. We can set this as one of our goals. And I cannot stress enough on the importance of asking the right questions, going to as diverse people as we can to learn more about disability inclusion, and learn from them and listen to them when we are developing our stories. There are a number of examples made by the United Nations using the human-centered design. Um, uh, if we can go to several slides up, sorry,
Yeah,
Saman.
sure. I am at the.
We
Okay. Go
Yeah,
ahead,
yeah,
please.
we have two examples. One, I believe, one from UNICEF and another one from WFP,
Yeah.
and both these examples uses a human-centered design approach to design and deliver their services. So we can always consult these examples and use them. All right, so a final comment from me to Roberta and Morali. What the question that I didn't ask you that you wish to, that I wish that I could ask you? Let's start with Roberta. Is there anything I didn't ask you?
I
Yes.
guess you asked everything that I was planning to say, Heba, and just thank you for the opportunity of sharing my own experience, which is not a perfect experience, it's not an experience of an expert and a specialist, but of someone that really is really passionate about what can we bring from diversity to the workplace. Thank you.
Thank you
For
very
me,
much. And yes, Morali, please go ahead.
go ahead, go ahead. Sorry.
No, I was just going to thank Roberta, and I was going to thank her for the insightful experiences she offered.
Thank you for everything, and I think you asked everything. I'm done.
Okay, so to our attendees, thank you very much, Murali, for sharing your personal experience and for sharing your video. And if any of the audience would like to ask any question, the floor is open, so don't miss the chance. I know it's a holiday, but actually it's one of my best holidays that I'm spending here with you. So if you have any questions, feel free to ask them now.
So there is a question here on the chat box if we are going to share the presentation for the consultation. Yes, so we are organizing all the presentations and the recording of the sessions to be shared with all the audience. And we have on the screen right now also the feedback survey.
All right, thank you so much, Roberta, for reminding me. Please, colleagues, we are really we will appreciate if you take this 5-minute survey to provide us with your feedback. We're constantly trying to improve the trainings and webinars we're supporting, so your feedback is always appreciated. Yes.
We have a comment here that was a very inspiring session.
Thank you, colleagues. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Yes, Murali,
Bye-bye.
please go.
Yeah, thank you very much.
Thank you very much. And we're looking forward to seeing you in our last webinar on next week, which would be on Disability Accessibility Clinic. It's going to be a free-form, unstructured webinar where you will be asking any kind of questions about accessibility or disability in general. So feel free to join us in the next session. And I was I really enjoyed giving you this session, and I hope that you enjoyed listening to it as much as I enjoyed listening to our panelists and enjoyed delivering it. So it's over from my end. Over to you, Saman, for any concluding comments or remarks.
Thank you very much, Sheba, and thank you, Roberta. Thank you, Murali. It is amazing sessions. I can see that there are a number of thanks notes on the chat. Heba, you can read it later. I can see right before closing, there is a hand raise from Josephine. Josephine, please go ahead. Seems like it is an accident, I guess. All right. So no, from my side, thank you so much, colleagues, and thank you for everybody. So look forward to meeting you again in another sessions. Have a wonderful Eid celebration if you are celebrating. Otherwise, have a wonderful restful day.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Bye-bye.
colleagues. Thank you, Roberta. Thank you,
Bye-bye.
Morali. Thank you so much. Bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.